Our next reader is the author of the cross-generational family epic, The Fugue, set for release in December from the Chicago Center for Literature and Photography. You can see the little postcards on your table. His writing has appeared in the St. Petersburg Review, Quarterly West, Curbside Splendor, Antique Children, and other publications. He's a photographer and the author of the cult novel Finding the Moon in Sugar. Please welcome Gint Aras.
Very nice, thank you. All right, I'm going to read for about 8 minutes from The Fugue. Its release date is December 7th, which is next week, Tuesday, right? Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. The book is set in Cicero, Illinois, and it, as all books should be, right? And it deals with the community of World War II refugees. The action takes place in the latter half of the 20th century, the beginning of our century. The main character is a sculptor who goes to prison for the murder of his parents. They die in a house fire. In this scene, which takes place in spring of 1962, the people you'll meet here, Bronza and Gaia, are his parents. The reader knows that they've been killed in the fire when the novel begins. The character Benny that appears later on in the scene is a folk artist who sculpts from wood. On the last weekend in April, Bronza Dilianko was able to move into his new house. He had no furniture and slept on wool blankets folded together and covered with cotton sheets. The house had no fuses, and for the first few days, Bronza lit his way with an oil lamp he had found in the basement among old trunks, rusty tools, and dusty bottles. He felt there was something romantic about no electricity, visualizing himself as a great landowner from an old book, and didn't rush to replace the fuses. He often had the feeling that someone was in the house with him. The feeling must have been a natural response to living in a new house. Bronza did not believe in ghosts, but the awareness persisted, especially at night. On some days, he went through all of the house's 7 rooms, the closets, basement, and attic, in search of something he hoped to hell he wouldn't find. After a week in the house, the feeling went away. He had almost forgotten it when he first saw the glowing ember of someone smoking a cigarette in his yard. It didn't frighten him. He stood at the back window and watched the glow form tracer arcs. Bronza could hear the subtle creak of the swing. Whoever it was came often, usually between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., but left little trace, not even cigarette butts. Bronza checked for the visitor each night, standing in the dark and narrow back room. Sometimes Bronza felt the presence even later at night. One time he was sure the visitor had come and felt disappointed to find the yard empty. Dilianko finally decided to wait outside for the visitor. He only wanted to see who it was. The visitor came down the gangway while Bronza sat in the corner where he was well hidden but still able to see. It was a girl. There were plenty of things to trip over, a bird bath, a bizarre grotto, a few thin stumps, but she knew the backyard well. When she lit her cigarette lighter, Bronza saw Gaia's face, and for the first time, her smooth skin and large eyes. She could not have been older than 20, probably younger. Her beauty was so striking, so inexplicable, that he thought he must have deeply wanted her to be beautiful, simply because she was a strange girl in his yard. When it was dark again, Bronza sat stone stiff, only 10 yards away, and controlled his breathing, pinching his nose when he wanted to cough. She soon lit another smoke, and he stared at her eagerly, hoping he might memorize her face in that brief moment of firelight. When she stood, he followed her. His back hurt from sitting on the lawn, and his ass was wet and cold. Bronza was careful to keep his distance. He only needed to know where she lived. After walking just down the block, she went into a small brick house with a large front window and sturdy concrete stairs. Bronza smoked one cigarette in the street and then went up to the porch where a folding chair leaned against a little table. A book of matches lay in an empty ashtray. On a sanded and lacquered piece of wood hanging below the mailbox, he found the names Benny and Gaia Laputis. He recognized the surname as Lithuanian, knew the J was pronounced like a Y. Without giving it another thought, Bronza rang the doorbell. Benny's head appeared in the diamond-shaped window in the door. "Hello?" "Hi." Bronza waved gently. "Hi." Is Gaia home? Benny's wet and exhausted eyes widened. They scrutinized Bronza. Benny seemed as fascinated by him as he was skeptical, perhaps annoyed with the late visit. The door finally opened, and Bronza saw Benny was in his shorts. He said, "Come," his voice dry. Bronza entered the small front room, oddly cold, reeking from years of cigarette smoke. Benny turned on a table lamp and pointed to a sofa. "Sit," he said. "You need beer?" "Sure." As Benny busied himself in the kitchen, Bronza took a good look at the artwork on the walls. The demon, an octagon-shaped sun, the idiotic dwarf next to the reading chair, and the 15 or 20 figurines scattered all over the coffee table and floor, some of them fallen to their sides. A pillowcase next to him had been filled with more figurines, but Benny returned before Bronza had a chance to look at them. "Thanks." Bronza took the beer. "Glad to meet," Benny said and sat in his chair. "You are welcome here." "Glad to meet you too," said Bronza. "Where's Gaia?" He waved his hand. "Maybe bat, maybe sleep." Bronza realized Benny was very drunk, and he did not look well. His skin was pale, and he spoke with an unnatural lethargy. Movement seemed to cause him discomfort. Bronza was also struck by his bright amber, almost feminine eyes. They could have been the eyes of a calculating madman, staring intently into Bronza with the paranoid desire to know everything about him, or they could have been the eyes of a fool who would point at a shoe and say, "Shoe." Bronza did not feel welcome, but now had no idea how to leave. "Maybe," said Benny, "Gaia in kitchen." "Right. You just came from the kitchen. Tell me your name." "Dilianko. Bronza." "Here you are welcome, Dilianko, Bronza." Benny lifted his bottle, and Bronza returned the gesture. "Dilianko Bronza," said Benny. "You know, she is lying me about you." "What'd she say?" "She's saying she does not..." He pressed his side, straining his face. "She says you not exist." Bronza was quiet. "Why?" asked Benny. "Why is she embarrassed about you?" "You know what she's like." "Yes." Benny drank the beer and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. He burped silently into a fist. "Know what she's saying now to me?" "What?" "I'm invisible." Benny leaned back into the chair, rocking his head to glare at the ceiling. "I ask question, Gaia, you are coming? Gaia, you are eating?" And she say, "No, I'm invisible, like this." "She speaks also to you like this?" "No." "Wait. In few years, if you are together." "Yes, because she like my sister." Then he tapped the finger to his temple. "Right here, in head. Many complexes." Bronza's head bobbed around. "But she beautiful," Benny said. Bronza nodded. "And you?" Benny asked. "Are you Catholic?" "Me?" Bronza looked Benny over very carefully. "No." Benny's face lit up, and he smiled briefly, lifting his beer. "Good." Benny drank the bottle down in a few gulps and stood from the chair, stumbling slightly when he stepped over to the sofa. He picked up the pillowcase and dug around. "I thinking have one for you." He soon found a figurine and handed it over. It was a crucifix. The figure of Christ had been sculpted separate from the cross and nailed down with fine nails. The cross was more like a T, two rough and interlocking posts. Bronza was struck by the graphic detail of the bones and strained joints, and how heavily the body, especially the head, hung. "This is God," said Benny. "God the Son." "God the Father did this to his Son." Benny rubbed his face. "But you know the church's teachings?" "I don't," Bronza lied. "Church's teachings very simple. God the Father and God the Son, they are same. You know, it's like 1 + 1 = 1. Smarter mathematics. They say it mystery, but I tell you what it means. I tell this guy many times, because what it means suicide. God killed himself." Bronza took the pillowcase into the kitchen. Benny took the pillowcase into the kitchen. He brought Bronza another beer. "She will come soon," he said, disappearing for a third time. "Just wait." Bronza heard the back door of the house open and close gently. The small house was quiet. Bronza wanted to leave before Benny returned, but he also wished to communicate with Gaia in some way. He looked around the front room and finally found a pad by the telephone. Bronza was searching for a pen when the doorbell rang. He saw a blond man standing at the porch and opened the door. "Hi." Lars looked past Brunza into the house. Hi, I'm sorry, he whispered. I know it's late. I'm a friend of Benny's, a family friend. Oh, you want to come in? Yeah, thanks. Lars stepped past Brunza and went into the front room where he picked up the unopened bottle of beer from the table. He set it back down. I'm sorry, my name's Lars, he said. Lars Jorgensen. And you? I'm Dilianko, call me Brunza. Sure, Brunza. You're one of Gaia's friends or something? Brunza stood quiet. Is Benny around? Yes. Lars stood calm, but Brunza could sense his discomfort. Their silence started to feel awkward, and Lars broke it by knocking on Benny's bedroom door. He pushed it open. Not there, he said. In the can? Lars only approached the bathroom door. You know, he said, I went to the billiard club to wait for him. Thought maybe he'd come by there. Then came home. I know it's late, but he usually stays up. We were talking, said Brunza. He went out the back door. Back door, said Lars. This guy nowhere? She's sleeping. Right. Back door. Maybe out in the garage studio? Maybe. Lars went out the front door. On the porch, he found a book of matches and took it. While walking, he lit matches and tossed them, one by one, onto the sidewalk. He went down the gangway into Benny's backyard, a square of grass. White sheets hung on a clothesline strung from the house to the garage. A dim light shone through a frosted window. Lars went up to the door, put the matches in his pocket, and pushed the door open. Thanks very much.